Many weeks after it has been introduced and announced, the Huawei Mate 30 Pro hit the European and the Swiss market. We can only have it here, as far as I know, in two colors, namely in black and silver, but at least it's here. There is a fat sticker on top of that box saying no Google services, which is a disclaimer by the retailer, making sure people don't return their phones and ask for a refund because they were not aware that there is no Google App Store on these phones. That's something you can deal with, and the person who sold this to me today at my trusted retailer said immediately, if you give us a couple of minutes, we install Google services for you. I said, no, thank you. I know how to do that because there are many tutorials in the web how you can do it. But actually thinking about it, contemplating for a moment, is it a curse or is it a blessing if you don't have Google services? I don't know. I'll find out. And maybe in the next couple of days, I try to just use the phone and, falling in love with that phone without Google services. If then I'm still missing something, I can still go and follow one of the many tutorials in the web to actually install Google services and get my content back, which is in the Google Cloud. But maybe it's also a good experience to try it out. And actually most of the apps I'm using day by day, they are on my iPhone 11 Pro Max anyway. So I don't think I'm missing that much, but I'll keep you posted and we'll find out. What I'm going to do now is a quick unboxing, looking what's in the box. I'm not sure by now if there is a case included. So just to be on the safe side, I ordered one from another retailer here in Switzerland. We'll find out very soon. And I think with the unboxing now, let's get started. So what you see here is the not unboxed yet Mate 30 Pro, and I would call it the reboxed Huawei P30 Pro. This one is going away tomorrow. I effectively sold it today to a colleague of mine in the office because I switched now to the Mate 30 Pro. I hope I do not regret that move because the P30 Pro, if you follow my channel, really was a terrific phone. But nevertheless, I'm curious to try out the new flagship phone from Huawei here, the Mate 30 Pro, and since my colleague told me today that she needs a new phone, I thought, why not selling the P30 Pro if you have the Mate 30 Pro now being your new companion. So that's going away. So let's open the box now. Let's see what's inside. Here is the phone. So it's in this silver finish here. I'm going to unwrap this later because I first want to check what else is in the box. What changed from the Mate 20 Pro to the Mate 30 Pro is the design of the cameras here from Leica. And on the Mate 20, they were in a square form. Now they are in a circular design, which looks very nice. A little more like a camera probably, but with 4 different elements in it. And I already see it right now. The finish of the back will be very much magnetic to fingerprints. So I will use a case to protect the phone anyway. In general, if you look at the phone, so I have small hands or comparably small hands for a male grown-up person, but this phone is very comfortable in the hand. I like it a lot, and I think they have always a good compromise, giving you a large screen, and this one even goes over the edges here, and at the same time making the phone still handleable with one hand, which I think is very nice. So let's see what else is in the box. Here is, I guess, some paper stuff. They used to have in this kind of box here a case. It seems they removed it. I think they could have easily included a case here, but they didn't. Some paper stuff in here. And then what else is in the box? So there is a USB-C cable here, which is standard. Then we have a headset. The headset is, I would say, below standard. Samsung is doing much better in that. If you look at that, it's a very simple plain vanilla headset. Absolutely nothing to write home about. But what is special is the charger. And the charger here is, it says it here, supercharge, is a 40 watt charger, which is very powerful. So my gut feeling is that this will charge the phone very quickly. So hopefully if you're in an airport lounge with 30 minutes of charging time, you get a lot of capacity back to your phone. Of course, what interests me most on Huawei phones is the Leica Camera System. What you see here is different information coming from DxOMark, which is the benchmark I typically use when I want to find out how good a lens or a sensor or a smartphone from the camera side is. And you see here that the Huawei Mate 30 Pro is actually the new champion in the DxOMark smartphone camera ranking. There is a tiny little difference of 2 scores between the Mate 30 Pro and its 5G version. It's not really clear to people why we have 2 points more here, but DxOMark is saying this might be due to software tuning or, you know, slightly different setup, because the hardware camera specs of the camera are exactly the same. And you see here also that if we compare it with the P30 Pro, in the ranking, the Mate 30 Pro climbed up quite some notches. So this is quite nice. Comparing the P30 Pro with the Mate 30 Pro, and I come to that later, we lose a little bit on the zoom side, but we have a huge gain on the image stabilization side, as well as on the wide angle lens, where the resolution doubled from 20 megapixels to 40 megapixels. And actually on the image stabilization, especially when walking with the camera, in video stabilization is just insane. And the reason is that Huawei is using here optical image stabilization in combination with AI stabilization, which is artificial intelligence. And this combination really gets the best out of the hardware features of the phone, as I'm going to demonstrate later. So before looking into the native camera app of the Mate 30 Pro, have a quick look at my screen here, which is presented now in the video. And it's very clean, it's very tidy. And the reason is that even after 2 weeks, I did not install Google Mobile Services and all the Google apps. I can live without it. The only app I was installing from a different source was the BlackBerry app on the upper right hand side in the dock of the phone. All the other apps I can live with as is, because I use my Android phones from Huawei mainly for photography. And actually the native camera app is excellent, as I will show in a moment. So no need for me at this point in time to get Google Mobile Services installed and all the Google apps on my phone. The only app I'm really missing is YouTube, because that's something which, if you would download it from a different source than the Google Play Store, you can actually not install, because it's relying on GMS, the Google Mobile Services, which are not available at this phone at this point in time without further tweaking. So let's go into the native camera app. I will not be able to record video now, but I can walk you through the menu and then show you samples, because I'm screen recording in the background, and this is an overlay which does not allow the phone to take another video on top of it. So first of all, we are here in the usual setup. You notice from the P30 Pro, it's not that different, but there are tiny little, but maybe also significant differences here. So first of all, in the photo app, if you go to the settings, we can adjust the resolution here. So we have 40 megapixels. We also have 10 megapixels. In the 10 megapixel setting, we get at the bottom of the screen these zoom options with different dots here. So this is the wide angle lens, this is the normal lens, and this is the 3x zoom, and this is the 5x hybrid zoom. So that's in the same way as we are used to it from the P30 Pro. If we go to 40 megapixels, we do no longer get these toggling buttons here, so they basically vanished from the bottom of the screen. But, and that's the important difference I mentioned before in the video, if we are actually in the wide angle setting, so let's go back to 10 megapixels, and let's switch here to wide angle, we can go to the settings and also use 40 megapixels. And that is terrific, because that gives me the double resolution on the wide angle side than what I had on the P30 Pro. On the flip side of the coin, if we are on a setting where we get the toggle points here for the magnification, it's only a 3x optical zoom and a 5x hybrid zoom, and not as on the P30 Pro, a 5x optical zoom and 10x hybrid zoom. And I can also only go up here to a 30x magnification, not to the 50x, which I used for the moon zoom in some of my videos on the P30 Pro. I think that's mainly what we need to discuss on the main camera section here, so photo. If we go to video, we have all kinds of options here too. We can take videos in wide angle. We have the 1x magnification, 3x optical, and 5x hybrid magnification. That's all working fine. If we go to the settings here, I've chosen here 16:9 4K, which is recommended, but you can also get all kinds of different options here. You can also adjust the frame rate, which is nice. So like on the iPhone, you can go to 60 frames per second, which gives your videos a more cinematic look. So let's go back here on the video section. If we go to the Pro section, we also have the same options as we had before on the P30 Pro. So we can manually adjust here, for instance, the ISO value. The ISO value is going up to insane 409,600, which completely overexposes that scene here, but you can also go down, of course. Let's switch this back to automatic. The same on the shutter speed. So we can go to 1/4000 of a second in the manual mode and up to 30 seconds in manual adjustment of the shutter speed here. So that's all fine and good. We also have here actually in the info button kind of a description or a very crisp and short manual what's going on in the Pro mode, and on the settings we have the same adjustments as before. We can go to different resolutions, we can actually add watermarks and all of that. Assistive grid is what you see actually in my screen here for the rule of thirds, these kind of things. Where it becomes a little more interesting is probably here, and more interesting, of course, I don't want to ignore the fact here that the wide angle lens is now giving us the double resolution compared to what we had on the P30 Pro. So that's already excitement enough. But if you look into the more section here, let's go into time lapse, because time lapse, I was always annoyed that I had not found any smartphone in the market which offers 4K time lapse natively out of the camera. Maybe there are other phones which are overlooked, but the P30 Pro was not ready doing it, neither is the iPhone 11 Pro Max. And I showed in some of my videos and tutorials on my channel how I solved that problem by basically switching into an intervalometer app on Android, which is then automatically releasing the shutter button and then catching each and every single frame and then compiling them later to a 4K time lapse in Final Cut Pro or in Premiere Pro. Here it is different. First of all, you have here in the settings the option to immediately choose 4K. And it's the same video option on the time-lapse side which you have on the native video mode. So you can go to 16:9 4K, which gives you really good resolution. I'm going to show a sample in a moment. You can also go to full screen and all of that. You can choose different settings here. What is also interesting is this adjustment button here. So you can go up actually here to 800 times speed, and you can go down to 15 times speed. So there are different manual options, or you can choose this to be automatic. You also have here the option on the Pro section to, even in the time-lapse app, adjust manually your exposure. And that is something we've not had before. I've not seen this on any single smartphone in the market. And if you are a time-lapse fan, one of those people who like to take time lapses all the time, this is probably the phone which offers you the most options for manual adjustments in the market. So here you can go to the recording duration. You have different settings here, but 1800 times speed I think is really, really cool, and that you can adjust this in the time lapse. In the iPhone 11 Pro Max, for instance, if you do a time lapse, everything is preset, nothing you can adjust, in particular not the speed, and also in particular not your exposure. What you can do now here in the Pro mode, and you see the settings on the right hand side of the screen. That's really, really cool. So let's go back to the more section again. If we go now into the slow motion section, we do not have 4K. So the best we can get here is 180p, 16:9 recommended. This is what I've chosen here. So, but this also depends on the number of frames per second you want to have. So for instance, you can go for 120 frames per second. You can go here to 240 frames per second, 960, 1920 frames per second takes you down from 1080p to 720p, and you can go up to insane 7680 frames per second in at least a good resolution of 720p, which of course is small if you compare it to 4K, but is something we've not seen on a smartphone before. So I appreciate that. I typically take, and I show a few samples later on, 960 frames per second at a 180p resolution here. So that's also pretty cool. You can also adjust, you know, the frame here, which is paying attention to where the motion is happening, all these kinds of things and features. But as I said, you can adjust this in various ways how you want to do it. So let's go back to the more section again. We also have what I reviewed on the P30 Pro, the light painting app, and I think nothing here changed. On the right hand side you get your options for star trails, silky water. I showed that in one video how that actually changed the appearance of a picture over water, like if you would have a neutral density filter applied to it. You have light graffiti and also a little, let's say, recipe how you do that, and traffic lights. I did them extensively with the P30 Pro. That's all the same here on the Mate 30 Pro. So what else to mention here? Dual view is something I want to mention. Dual view gives you a magnified video on the left hand side and the standard view on the right hand side. It's something which was supposed to be on the P30 Pro from scratch, but came actually with a firmware update. Here it is immediately visible and it's immediately usable on the phone. It came just out of the box, and you can on the left hand side adjust now to 2 times magnification, 3 times optical magnification, and 5 times hybrid zoom, which is quite nice if you want to oversee the scene on the right hand side but still get a lot of detail and zoomed into the picture on the left hand side. Then we have the portrait mode, and it's actually interesting if you look into that. So there is a portrait mode and there is an aperture mode, and there is a big difference between the iPhone 11 Pro Max, which I love. I posted a lot of videos about the new iPhone and I love my phone. It's in the ecosystem I'm used to, and the camera system with this triple camera is just terrific. But there are a few things where I think Huawei is in a big advantage, and one of those things is the distinction between a portrait mode and an aperture mode, because the portrait mode already gives you some kind of fuzziness, bokeh, if you do a portrait. So you get this, let's say, deepness effect or 3D pop in the image, but you cannot adjust the aperture. In contrast, Apple only has the portrait mode, and the portrait mode unfortunately works most of the time only if you point your phone really at a real face. It does not work with any other items you put into place, and I'm going to show an example in a moment. Here you have a distinction between portrait mode and aperture mode, and if you are in the aperture mode, you see here on the right hand side of the screen the f4, which is the aperture. You can adjust this and can close the aperture. You can open it widely to 0.95. When I say opening or closing the aperture, I mean software simulation, of course. This is not an optical physical property we are adjusting here. It's software simulation, but it works very, very nice, and I'm going to show this in my example in a moment. And then last but not least, we have a night mode here. The night mode appeared to me as flexible and good working as I know it from the P30 Pro. If we go to the resolution here, we can not go up to 40 megapixels, but we can go down in different crops here into the image. But 10 megapixel is good enough, I think, for a night mode. You can still print this in A3 norm, which is good enough. And you have the usual other settings here, like you have it in the normal photo section of the native camera app of the Mate 30 Pro. So the night mode works exactly the same as on the P30 Pro, taking focus, metering light, releasing the shutter button, and then waiting for the countdown when the camera takes exposure. So let's have a look at a few samples here from my backyard, and then later maybe a couple of other pictures from other scenes where I use the night mode. let's quickly wrap up and conclude on my experience after 2 weeks with the Mate 30 Pro. I think Huawei managed it again to take it to a new level when it comes to smartphone photography. And also from other angles, if you have that phone in your hand, if you use it day by day, there is a lot to like. Battery life, for instance, and power reserves are much better than what I'm used to when it comes to other smartphones. It brings me through 2 full days without recharging, and if I have to recharge, it's very quick. I mentioned at the beginning the power charger included in the box. And there are also other tiny little improvements which you notice if you used to work with a Huawei phone before. For instance, video zoom was very stuttering when switching lenses on the P30 Pro. That has been improved. It's not optimal yet, but it's better than it used to be before. Whether you can live or not live without Google mobile services is your own assessment and your own judgment. For me, it's fine. I don't need it. The only app I'm missing, as I mentioned before, is YouTube. But you can also use your browser to actually get a lot of functionality back, even without the YouTube app. You gain a lot on the wide angle side. I think 40 megapixels on the Mate 30 Pro compared to 20 megapixels on the P30 Pro is a big gain. There are tiny little differences in the lens camera system, so a little bit on the aperture side, a little bit on the focal length, but nothing you would notice in daily photography. So all in, it's an excellent value package. I can recommend it, and if we would get back Google Play Store and Google mobile services, it would be probably the best smartphone currently available in the market. If you like my video, please give me a thumbs up. If you like my channel, you are invited to subscribe. Thanks for watching. Have a good start into the new year, and peace out.